Frank Mendez. I was born and raised here in San Francisco in September 15th, 1929.
How old are you?
95 will be 96 in September. Well, the day I turned 16 was September 15th, 1945. The war had just been over, but I had tried to get in the year before. I had a sister who was 16 months older than I was, and she went down to the Board of Health, I guess, here in the city, and got her birth certificate. So I doctored it all up and gave them the birth certificate. They said, okay, they'll have your papers in about a week. Go down to the SUP hall and sign up for their lifeboat training class that they have. I think it was Pier 9. And you'll be all set. As soon as your paper comes, you'll get to go to sea. I said, great. So I went to the hall and signed up, and they told me, okay, get on to Pier 9 and at this date and take, I think, 10 days of class. And so I went down there, and I walked up, and there was a guy from the War Shipping Administration and a guy from the union. And I said, my name's Frank Mendez. Oh, yeah. He said, why don't you come back when you're 16? I said, oh, God, how'd you know? What do you mean? It's very embarrassing, you know. Yeah. But anyhow, they said, well, because I was born in the city, they just checked the records. And so I had to leave. And then when I turned 16 in September of 45, the war had just been over about a month. So I went down and got my papers. Within 2 weeks, I went down to the Marine Firemen's Union. They dispatched me as a wiper. I got on a C2 merchant ship. We still had the guns, and so we had a skeleton crew of armed guard. So when we went out, you know, we had to worry about mines once we get out a little further out in the Pacific. So the Navy Armed Guard, they were having a field day. Everybody say, look, there's one out there. And they start shooting the 5s and the 3s off, you know, and never hit a mine, but hit a lot of poor fish out there. But anyhow, I went to Yokohama, Japan. There were hundreds of ships out there on the bay. So we were there to pick up the military government of South Korea. There was about 40 licensed officers from the Army that we were going to take over to Incheon. So we were there about 10 days or so. Then we went to Incheon, took them over, unloaded there, and we were in Incheon for, oh God, I don't know, 6 weeks or so. Unload and everything else. And one thing about Incheon, nobody told us, well, first of all, the only way we get ashore is our own lifeboats. So they had a scheduled lifeboat would go in the morning and come back at 5 o'clock at night. So when we went ashore and tied up at the pier, nobody told us about the tides. You know, in Incheon, in the morning the tide's way up. In the afternoon they go way down. So we go out there in the boat, the lifeboat's way out there, and they had the ABs, a couple of ABs, and they had to go out and bring it and tow it into it, you know, lug it into it. When I was there, my hand swelled up, and the purser arranged for me to go to a military hospital in Seoul. And I was there for 8 days, and in those days, penicillin was the big thing. So every 3 hours, arm, butt, you know, round the clock. If you sleep and they wake you up and give you the shot. So, but it was work. But anyhow, I was there for 8 days, and we got back to the ship. Then we went to Okinawa just before Christmas. And they told us we had to get out because a big typhoon was coming. Big typhoon in 1945 was just wrecked Okinawa. And we got the tail end of it. We got out of there. But that was the only time we couldn't cook. You know, for one day it was just rocking and rolling, and we're high up because we're empty. So they had sandwiches for us, you know, for that. because I'm considered a World War II vet, in 1988, when the Merchant Marine was considered veterans, it was up to August 15th, 1945. So our national office said, wait a minute, what about all the military people? They got from December 31st of 46, so we want the same thing. For 1994 or 95 is when they got approved. So I'm one of those that came into that, and that's why I'm considered a World War II vet. But anyway, I sailed off and on through the years. In 1950, I was on a 4-month trip to Australia, New Zealand. Coming back about a few days out of San Francisco, said over the radio, ship's radio, the Korean War started. We said, this shouldn't be too long. Anyhow, we got to San Francisco, and I was the delegate on the ship for the Union. And it was my job to find out who was going to stay on the ship, who to get off. And then I called the hall, and they tell me we need so many replacements. So I called the hall, and they said, okay, we'll be there tomorrow, just hang in there. They come the next day, and they had a Army brass with them, and they said, listen, we're in trouble in Korea. We're getting our ass kicked, and we don't have, they need supplies. We have to get ships out of the mothball fleet. That's going to take a while. We have to get crews for them. So we want you guys to stay on. We're going to load you up, take all this stuff to Korea. So I said, oh, okay, I'll do that. So we loaded up, and then we went from here, we went over to Army base, loaded up the Navy depot. Then we went up to Birmingham. After we loaded up the ship, went up to Birmingham, Washington, and they put all this heavy equipment on the top. We had jeeps and everything on board on the deck. So we went over to Busan. And Busan, this was in July and August of 1950. Busan was the last 26 miles. That's all we had in Korea. We had been kicked all the way down there. So I was on 8 to 12 watch. Oh, first of all, they took us right in to a pier and started unloading the heavy equipment. And so I said, I'm going to shore when I got off at 12 o'clock, get a beer or something. I was surprised when I got ashore that everybody was armed because they were afraid there was a breakthrough. So anyhow, I got a beer and sit in the bar, everybody's armed and kind of crazy, you know. We just stood there that day. And then they got us out of there immediately because we were loaded with high explosives and everything else. They put us on a anchorage way away from the city, and we were there for 2 to 3 weeks, unloading on barges, and no other ship around us. We were the only one there. Then they sent us out, and then we got unloaded and left.
Was there fear of mines around Korea when you got there?
No, but they were afraid of sappers and stuff like that, putting, explosives on the ship and stuff. And that's why they got us away from there, because of all the explosive we had on. Right. Anyhow, at nighttime you could see the guns going off and all the flashes because we were so close to them. And then I did one more trip after that. I went back to Incheon in 1952, I think it was my last trip. And that was the big difference from the first time I was there, because the first time I was there was just a small sleeping village, fishing village. And when I went back to this next time, the city was all bombed out because, the Incheon landing and all that stuff. So it's a big difference. But anyhow, that was my all I went to sea. Then I worked ashore. When I joined this organization was in '93, the American Merchant Marine Veterans. And right about the same time, there was a new organization set up, was called the Pacific Coast Merchant Marine Veterans and Navy League Post or chapter, whatever it was. And that was made up of all merchant seamen and Navy personnel. So I think it was around 2008 or 2009, the president of that Navy League, of of the, yeah, well, he was a Navy League, but the president of the organization, sent out an email, wanted to know if any merchant seamen out there had been to Korea during that period. So I emailed back, see, I was there twice. Within 20 minutes, I got a call from Lieutenant Colonel John Stevens, I never forget that, USMC. He called me, he said, hey, Frank, he says, we're starting an organization, no, we're starting a committee that we want to recognize the Korean War veterans. And we, you have been there, and we consider you a veteran, so we'd like you to serve on our committee. I said, sure, it's fine. So we met here at this building. Every year they had a lunch for all the Korean War veterans in the area. And we had about 300 people up there up in the room upstairs for a while. And, but anyhow, we sat on that committee, did that for 3 years, around 2010 or something like that, 2010. I got a call from Colonel Stevens again. He says, Frank, we're starting a new committee. We want to build a Korean War memorial for the Korean vets. We want you to sit on it. I said, sure. And at that time, Pete McCloskey he's a recipient of the Navy Cross. He was a congressman, a couple other, but anyway, the goal was we wanted to build a memorial recognizing and honoring the people of what they called the Forgotten War. We had to find a site, so the subcommittee went all different places in the city where they're going to build it. Finally went to the Presidio. They offered us a nice site just below the Golden Gate Bridge, right across the street from the cemetery. And so we got the site, then we had to raise funds. So we figured it cost $3 million. So we figured, okay, so they sent out letters trying to get everything. We figured with Pete McCloskey, the next congressman, he had a lot of clout. Within, let's see, about 2 years, we raised $2 million. But we needed $3 million to complete it. So the South Korean government put in the other $1 million. And then we raised $3 million and built this beautiful cemetery. Just if you have a chance, it's right below, we're right where we're going to, about 3 blocks away from where we're meeting. No, I had just retired from my job. I worked for the state of California. And just before I retired, used to work with a lot of unions and management organizations and all that. And one of the guys that was the training director for the automotive industry told me, he said, hey, Frank, I'm going up to Santa Rosa, and a friend of mine is the cook up there at the Marine Cooks and Stewards Training Center. And he's telling me that there's an organization here in San Francisco called the Merchant Marine Veterans, and it's all Merchant Marine people, and they meet every month. You want to come? And I said, sure. So that was in 93 at the War Memorial Building here in Golden Gate Avenue. I went down there and joined. In 2002, I got on the executive board, and then 2 years later, I became the secretary-treasurer of the organization. I'm still the secretary-treasurer. So I've been quite a history, but at that time, we had about 600 members, all World War II people. But now we're down to 24. They're all gone.
Let's talk a little bit, wrap it up with what's about to happen tomorrow in San Francisco at the West Coast Memorial. Tell us what your thoughts are about that finally being included here for the Merchant Marine of World War II.
I first would like to acknowledge a few individuals in attendance. Drew DiMattia, President of the American Merchant Marine Veterans, and a very special welcome to 4 World War II merchant mariners: Frank Mendez, Charles Mills, Claude Parasso, and Dave Yoho.
Well, I think it's great. It's finally, because we lost a lot of people, a lot of ships, a lot of men during the Pacific. Not as many as the Atlantic. The Atlantic, they were hitting them coming right out of Baltimore and everything. But we still lost, you know, we had subs out here and everything else. And so we lost, it was about time. I just think it's great. It's about time.
World War II, it's so important that you're here, and so we're honored that you're here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
appreciate
man,
that.
for all you've done.
It's been a long time coming. The officers of this organization from way back, and you know, when we got the recognition to now, it's just been fantastic trying to get more recognition for World War II vets. Drew has done a fantastic job, you know, with getting us the gold medal and all that. So that's been great. Yeah,
This is for them, it's for you, and big day tomorrow.
thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Salute to you. Heave ho.
Heave ho, right.